Hello and welcome to the Love Foundry podcast. It is Sunday, the 13th of July, and we caught Dan yawning.
Yeah.
Today, we've done a title of The Freedom to Love.
Oh, did we title it that? Good God, what are we thinking?
I know.
The power of love in us requires free will, which is often blocked from acknowledging or allowing love to be free in our expression, in our nature.
Hmm.
And I think the nature of courage itself wraps itself around this concept of the freedom to love, because it takes courage. It's the courage to act in the face of not only your own illusions and glamours as an ego, but everybody else's as well, because they're all judging. They're judging your demonstration. And it always changes and transforms and transmutes and alters our ego when we let any love out of us. Comes through and burns a greater hole in our ego than we had yesterday, until eventually it burns it out completely, and then you stand purified as a radiant point of love. And surprising to ourselves, we still have our individuality, but we now have the radiance of love pouring through that individuality. And like holding a match to the sun, you don't see the fire of the match because it's just nothing compared to the intensity of the spiritual light. So I'm thinking about that today because I think that's what's up today. That as we started yesterday, we're doing podcasts now that deal with what's going on in your life right now. And I think that because every day, I mean, it's a Sunday, so Sunday maybe lends itself to this. I don't know. I'm not trying to compare the days of the week to what we're doing, but every day is different. And every day is an opportunity to expand and clarify and intensify your connection to the eternal now, to the place from which you emanate as a part of the one life that is causing your small crystal to buzz with your own individual light. So, and it's that unified understanding of all of these crystalline lights that are each individual. Unfortunately, we're still shrouded in horseshit and mud and all the stuff that makes us impure to that light, but we're gradually burning it away. And as we burn it away with the courage and intensity of the power of love in us, we start to shine a little out more. And that causes other people to have more courage to shine their own light. So it's a good time. And this, as I said, is a Sunday. What did you tell people what date we're on, or are we just flagging?
I did, which it is the 13th of Sunday, the 13th
So
of
it's
July.
Sunday the 3rd. I didn't pay any attention to you. I was busy yawning. It is Sunday the 13th. So of July.
Of July.
I think it's July, right?
It is July.
So we're burning our way through Cancer, which is
or is Cancer burning its way through us?
Well, yeah, more to the point. Which is a very powerful group sign, which reminds us that without the group, you have no individuality. What good would it be? And so we don't know how to think about that very well yet. We think of God as an individuality because we think of ourselves that way. But the nature of any greater being than a human being, which is the human beings naturally think of themselves as individualities because that's the stage at which you become one.
Yes.
You go from an animal, which is a herd creature by nature. At its highest nature, animals are group critters of one kind or another. Elephants kind of hang together as a group and so on. But I'm not sure about roaches, but elephants do, and a lot of other critters do, and even animals that are singularly independent, like bears and cats have their own sort of group thing. They can hang with each other. So, but the greater beings greater than human beings, which is a lot, look up in the sky. Every one of those little twinkling lights was at one time in its history a human being. Everything in the universe either will be, is now, or has been a human being somewhere in its long evolution of experience, which means that there's a lot of beings up there that are far in advance of our stage of consciousness.
Yeah.
So, to the point that a planetary nature or being, Earth's being, has billions of human beings in its sphere, growing away, making up an entire kingdom of beings within its greater stuff. So when we think of the divine power of being a god, whatever that means, we kind of recognize that we're talking about a group being. Now, I think when you look at the solar system, you're looking at a group being, but you're looking at an individuality as well. Our solar system is a sunflower in a sea of sunflowers, but it damn well has its own individuality as well.
Yeah.
So we need that power to be able to love. The power of love in us takes a human being into a group power along with all the other beings. And eventually the whole human kingdom will become a group being because of all of us, with all those individualities within it. And then the model demonstrating love becomes a human model in a universe of models of love, doing all kinds of different things.
Yeah.
And then all of that added together is a model of a loving universe with intelligence and will experiencing itself. And our fantasies and glamours and illusions of separativeness from that model will be gone. And somewhere down the road, they will just have to go because we will give them up. And we will give up the desire to be separate from one another and from the greater universe and animals and angels and all the other creatures that share the universe with us. We'll just stop being afraid to be equal to them, to be involved with them, to be engaged with them through love, and let our guard down, so to speak. And so the freedom to love comes with applying our free will to dissipate the glamours and the illusions that stand between us and the demonstration of that freedom. Are you really free to love? Or are you partially free to love? Or do you have any freedom to love in you at all? Are you waiting for it? We're all at different stages of that. And I think that just to not fool ourselves, we need to recognize that if the power of love itself, love is a powerful thing because it's one of the few aspects of life that have been revealed to us. Will has been revealed to us, at least human will. And we can look up at the universe and say, well, there must be some other will around there somewhere. And intelligence has been revealed to us because we are able to walk and chew gum. We can invent stuff and turn it into weapons. We can do things. But the advent of love as an aspect of life, while it's been revealed to us, or revealed to the universe, I should say, as a giveaway. It's like a giveaway day at Target or something. Love is out there. Anybody can have it. It's free. But humanity is like, nah, I don't know. I don't know if I should. No, I'll think about it. Let me think about that. So we haven't really availed ourselves of the freedom to love because we haven't recognized that without it, you're missing the major aspect of life that's worth having, that's worth
Yeah.
using. And it's a shame if we miss that in ourselves, because that's the creative power of life. So life says, okay, here's my creative power. You take some of it and then you start creating, and then we'll figure out where to go from there. But if we say no to that, push it back, just take a tiny little taste, then we give up our freedom to express that as a powerful and dynamic energy in
Mm.
ourselves. And when humanity gives itself that power, uh, we'll have a changed world. And I think that the artists are the ones who will probably lead the next great revolution in that, because that's what they do. They
Yeah.
dig down in themselves and find a new version of, of love, and they start expressing it through their music and through their art and through their imagery. So I think that's coming right now into humanity. And I think one of the reasons you see such a collapse in the world is it's time for us to gin up a version of love that looks like a civilization, that looks like
Mm.
a bunch of people who really give a damn about it, and not a bunch of people who are being withheld from it by dictators and advisors and other people who think that they know more about the universe than the human heart does.
Mm. I
Which,
think creativity and love and flow, I think, are a really important subject, because I think it's how a lot of people will be able to grasp what it is to sort of connect to love. Because I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think opening yourself up to the flow of creativity is very similar, if not the same, as give like sort of surrendering yourself to the energy of love. And
well,
would,
what you're pointing at is where your free will, personal free will, your ego free will, and love's free will intersect. And you
yes,
know,
yeah,
I'm a fairly insular person that doesn't. I'm not an extrovert. I can do extrovert things, but I'm not. My nature is not that particularly.
yeah,
So, and I'm kind of like a lot of guys. It's like a guy having a girlfriend who's really outgoing. You go to a dance or you go to a party, and she's the one who's getting everything going. Pretty soon, she's dragging you out on the floor to get in a conga line, and the last thing you're interested in is being in a conga line, throwing one foot in the air after the other. And so we need those. We need that. We need to.
yeah.
And love is like that. Love is a conga line, a universal conga line that will throw you out there and embarrass your ego, embarrass your limited, selfish sense of beingness.
Hmm.
And if you're not willing to join the human race and be part of the great extravaganza of living outwardly with love, then it's going to be a struggle. And but once you know that being free of all those constraints and restraints and inhibitions doesn't turn you into a lunatic, because your girlfriend's not a lunatic. She can rein it in and do things in a reasonable way. I've had some that weren't quite that confined, but most most ladies of the world are as balanced and able to function in the world as men are. They just also have an ability to act out a little. And
Hmm.
so you have to realize that's okay. It doesn't kill you. It loosens you up. It gets you engaged in ways that you otherwise wouldn't. And I think without women, there wouldn't be any poetry contests. Men would just not bother. Well, I come from Alaska, and it's that makes an inbred sort of hillbilly out of almost everybody. I mean, we think of those guys that live up in Hog Hollow in Mississippi or somewhere as being pretty hillbilly, but Alaskans are, as far as I can determine, are just as much. They just don't sound like it because there's no accent to Alaska people. They don't really speak in an accent. But if they come from way up the creek where there's nothing but bears and cats and big tall trees, they can be pretty insular people. It's a terrible shock to me to move to California. My father died when I was reasonably young, and so we live in a logging camp, and we had no choice. At that time, the logging camp was in Oregon, but the woods of Oregon, 30 miles from Coos Bay, Oregon, was just about the same as Alaska. You don't see anything out the front window except trees. And so, in the end, coming to California, where she had to go with her 4 kids because now she has no husband, and you're in a logging camp and you're living in some logging camp's housing, was a terrible shock. I mean, it was like, holy mackerel. These people are way outside the box from what I was thinking was how it went with my friends in the logging camp and a few of the farmers in the valley where the logging camp was. You realize, and that road that we were living on was the Oregon Trail. That had been the Oregon Trail. There was a post office nearby in Sitcom, Oregon that had been founded in 1875 when somebody stopped and said, that's it. This place can grow wheat. I'm staying right here. So they just stopped and built a house, and their grandchildren were there, or great grandchildren, or whoever they were. So, but we were talking about pretty much the same damn things that those people were talking about when they stopped the wagon train. So, and that wasn't very much, you know. You talk about what's going on in the valley that you live in and what's going on with it. You know, we actually had a crank phone. When no one probably but me has ever used one of the damn things, but when they're hanging on your wall, it's a party line. It's a gigantic party line. And when you pick up the phone, if someone else wants to call me, they pick up the phone and that activates the line. And then you crank it. And mine was 3 longs, which is 2 cranks, 2 circles, and 2 shorts, which is 1 crank. So you hear ring, 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 ring. And then that tells everybody on the party line, including my house, that I'm being called. So naturally, the whole valley's bored. So everybody picks up the phone to see what's going on. They weren't invited into the call, but everybody's bored because there's nothing going on. So to go from that to California, which was down by Newport Beach, south of Los Angeles, Costa Mesa, was like, holy mackerel, it's like going to New York to a mountain person like me. And so I understand the shift in consciousness that can come from a major step forward. Yeah. And it's not just a different step forward. I mean, you grew up in England, and out in the country of England, people are more rural than London.
Yeah.
But nothing like coming from Alaska. I mean, I lived on an island in Alaska where there was nothing, not a store, not an Indian village on the other end of the island. That's it. And once a month, a mailboat would come and bring you anything that you ordered from Sears catalog. Or you'd get on a boat or a plane and fly to somewhere, and you'd buy stuff and bring it back, groceries, whatever you wanted. So remote can be really remote. And your consciousness is as remote as the location. Not today. Today you got internet. Today we can all be fucked up by the same group consciousness that the world is sharing and believe all the idiotic things that everybody else is talking about, none of which bothered me when I was growing up in the country, because you're not getting all that. You're not getting lied to constantly. So you kind of, bears don't lie to you. They might eat you, but they don't lie to you. And nothing does except your friends and your parents to the degree they do. So freedom to act past all that and release love into the space has to become a conscious thing. You have that freedom to do it, but we don't do it because there's nothing to challenge us to do it.
Hmm.
So that I think the value and advantage of all of these kind of things, and uh, and the all the internet that it connects us to, I think the value of all of that is it challenges your freedom to love. Will you or won't you? And it's a big challenge because we see all these kids smothering themselves in the scroll hole where they go down in there and start watching all the Instagrams and start watching all the cartoons. And there's so much wonderful shit. you can just sit there and flip Instagrams like hours because you'll see some guy juggling bears and speaking frog speak and talking about aliens and whatever the hell you want. I mean,
Yep.
it's just an infinite amount of really interesting human paraphernalia and propaganda and bullshit. So to have your own freedom with love in the midst of all of that is a tremendous challenge. But without the internet to connect you to any place in the world where that freedom is being expressed intelligently with will, so that you can be connected to it, you can be engaged with it, and make your own discrimination about it, you need that. So you've got to take the bad with the good with all of these things.
Hmm.
You have to recognize, I think, that this freedom of the internet, I'm not down for with Elon to head to Mars. He's welcome to head on, and I'll go on the second trip when he comes back and tell us how it went. But I think that human Earth life is exploding, and it's exploding into so much detailed stuff that our freedom is being lost in it, except the freedom to react to somebody else's freedom. So we have to be careful. We have to recognize that it is within us that is the source of life. The source of life is in you. The source of love is in you. The source of the whole universe of love and life is inside each person. It's not out there. It's in here. It's not that it's not out there. There's reflections of that all over the place. But the actual inner living universe is found through your inner awareness of it. Now, it doesn't look like that because your inner senses, the human inner senses, have not been really unfolded into sensitivity and depth at this stage of our experience. We can't all sing opera. It takes a lot of development to have this sophistication where we can listen and look within ourselves and open our senses to the frequencies inside and interpret them in terms of the inner reality that the outer reality is a reflection of. So I think today is a day in which that's up for grabs. And it may not be today if you're watching or listening to this, but it's always there. It's always there to be found. The freedom to love is in everybody, and the only thing that keeps that from happening is us.
Yeah.
No one can stop you from doing it. That's the beauty of the nature of free will. And love will never shut off or step over or push aside free will.
Hmm.
And neither will, by the way, anyone who serves love. Gods don't do it. Gods of love don't do it. And there are no other kind. There are no other kinds of gods, but gods of love. There are beings who have great love and beings who have greater love, because it's a very big subject. But none of them override free will. And although the past religions we've had seem to indicate that, we cooked up these anthropomorphic gods that look like humans, that squash people and kick people around and punish people for things that they didn't know they were doing wrong, and so on and so on. But I think that that's part of our human fantasy world. That's part of our own illusions and glamours about how the universe actually works.
Hmm.
We have this, it's more than that, but that's part of it. We have this tendency to make gods in our own image. One of the old sayings is that, God made man, and man, out of respect, returned the favor. So we created a God that we could imagine, but because we're half-formed creatures, we imagine half-formed gods. But and that was true. By the way, I think that's true even in the older days when we actually could interact with the greater beings that fill our universe. There are great beings that fill the whole universe is a living thing. Now, you don't see all the livingness of it when you look out into it because we've become a materialized and encrustated human race. We
Yeah.
don't see the livingness, but that doesn't mean your distant ancestors did not see the livingness. And I think when you go back to indigenous peoples, which we think of as people, indigenous peoples we think of as peoples maybe a few thousand years ago. But if you want to get to real indigenous people, you got to get back 500,000 years or something. You got to get back their ways. But to think that 50,000 years ago or 100,000 years ago, people did not know how to look up into the sky and relate to the beings that lived there is to impose on them the ignorance of our own modern thinking. And I think that their ability to relate to beings outside themselves is mostly what got this anthropomorphic thing going. They knew there were vast, great beings. They may not have known they were planetary beings or solar beings or whatever they were, great angel beings or something, but they were interacting with greater consciousness than ourselves. And some of it was probably helpful, like don't eat the yellow snow, whatever good advice you get from a greater being than yourself, it's good if it helps. So, and I think that, while those beings' hands were tied by human free will, you can love these little creatures running around on the planet called human beings, and you can look down on them and pity their idiocy and want to help them, but you can't violate their free will to do it.
Yeah.
And then there is that thing called evil. There is that
Yeah,
qualified energy qualified without love. What is there evil except energy that is loveless? It may have will, it may have intelligence, it may have been qualified by a great being in a far ancient past before love was revealed to the universe, and still around, still hanging out, still leaning on shit. And people can borrow that energy if they're loveless enough and tap into it and use it. But it's not real. It's only, well, if lightning electrocutes you in a thunderstorm, and you say, well, lightning's not real, it's just a temporary flicker of something. It's pretty real if it cooks you. So evil is a powerful, qualified energy, but because it lacks a soul, because it lacks the universe of life itself, giving it life, saying, go forth and prosper, evil's not being given that life, not saying, go forth and prosper in the universe. There's plenty of it out there from a time when that was the current vogue. Now it's not. This is a love-based universe. If you believe in love, if you look at the explanations of those who choose love, and having spent a lot of my life connected to spiritual teachers who are masters of love, I don't really have any argument with that because they are powerful and brilliant and incredible beings. From the Buddha to the Christ to the other spiritual masters that hang out here and there around the planetary life, there's just some stupendous beings whose life is love. They are masters of love, all of them. And so from them, you can learn a lot about the nature of love. and the nature of evil, if you care to, and the nature of life as humans experience it, caught in between good and evil. So that's our space, and that's where we're growing our decision-making power to liberate love in ourselves and drive evil out of the space, which love does. Evil cannot stand in the presence of love because love converts it. It transforms it into good upon contact. So, but if we don't have the power of love in us, the freedom to love in us, then when we meet evil on the path, we don't know what to give it except a fight, which puts us in the same category as evil. When you're fighting evil with a sword, that's fine. But if you don't have Excalibur, if you haven't got a sword that's animated by the energy of love, then you're not going to transform it. You might just temporarily defeat it. Which is why wars keep going on and on and on and on and on, because everybody thinks God's on their side, but no one wants to release love in themselves sufficiently to demonstrate that God. So this is where we are, and I think it's important for us to recognize that we're at an epic moment of transformation and choice and decision. And no one's going to force you to choose love. Not today, not tomorrow, maybe not next year. And if you want it in your life, it's available inside you already. And the arbitrator of that love in you, the thing that will release it in you, is your free will. So how clear are you on that? Are you clear about that? And if you don't have to make it a Christian religion thing where, give yourself up to the Christ or the will of God or something like that. You don't have to go into some sort of ritual about it.
Yeah.
If you don't want to, you can do that, and I'm not against doing that. If you're of that ilk, then joining the Christ in his struggle to help humanity release love in itself is a very good group to be part of. But it's got glamours and illusions about itself, just like every other thing does. So in the end, born again Christians struggle to live love. We all do. It's a challenge. And we'd like it to be easy, but it isn't. Okay.
No.
All right. So it isn't. That's all. That's all we could be said about it, except it's not easy, but it is doable.
Well, I think at least what we're trying to do helps, because it's rather than having, I don't know, something like a religion, which I've got nothing against any religion, but I feel like it limits you in a lot of ways, where if you're working on putting yourself in a posture and opening yourself up to love, I think that's an easier, maybe a harder concept to get around because it's so new and different, but I think it comes with less of the pitfalls that maybe going through something more traditional has.
Well, it would depend somewhat on the religion. We have founded a number of them. We had religions in the Aztec community where we're sacrificing virgins and cutting hearts out, living and stuff like that. So those religions were under the influence of things that were not necessarily as loving as they could have been.
Yeah.
Which doesn't mean they weren't sincere. The Aztecs were very sincere, but they were also will-centered people, and they were tough as a hobnailed boot, and they don't make up fairy rings and dance around them as much. They would use human heads for soccer balls. This is a tough group of people. And I'm Scot and Irish and English and some German, so I've got some tough tribes in my background too. I kind of know what that's like, and so I don't disparage any of them, because there are times when all of us are under the influence of things that are not love. We have never founded a civilization yet on love. We have founded it on a lot of other things. But now we can. Now we have grown to a point where we can actually embrace the concept of it and see if we can put it into the building blocks of the culture. And even a country like America didn't really build that into our Constitution in America wasn't really built on love. We had the Christian religion as the major religion in the country because so many of them came from Europe and the Middle East, some of them from the Jewish population, and they were founded on the concept of love. It was in them. And even the Greeks had, 3 different names for this energy and recognized it as part of a universal quality. But it wasn't built into the Constitution. It was deliberately excluded from the Constitution under the caveat of not making any national religion, which opens the door to evil. It opens the door to evil to say, okay, well, then we can have sacrifices and tossing around live snakes and sacrificing to the devil as our religion, and we're legal. And you go, yeah, okay, well, I guess you're legal. You can do that. So it's a matter of free will of what do you want to do. But we did choose freedom. You see, it was about freedom. We wanted freedom from the tyranny of someone else, England in your case, your ancestors, whoever the hell those guys are and were. No, at least a third of my ancestors came on the boats from England. In fact, some were actually on the Mayflower. John Eaton was on the Mayflower, so I can't argue. But we wanted freedom from that imposition upon ourselves of unfairness. We didn't mind giving some taxes. That was okay because, they gave some protection. They gave some people. They gave some stuff. But then they started trying to tax too much of what we were producing when they weren't producing it, which is something that England got in the habit of doing with a number of colonies. So we said, no, we want freedom from that. And so we fought a war for freedom, and we won that war, and we gained our freedom, which gave us the freedom to love. But love was not imposed on us through any religious stricture, and it still isn't. And so we can stand in our own yard, and we can radiate love as pure as you can find it in yourself. You have the freedom to do that. That's a huge thing. And our government was structured in such a way because these guys were really smart that did this, and young. They were all pretty much young. They weren't old dudes, except a couple of them were older. Ben Franklin was getting on in the tooth, but they were young, and they made this up, and they thought about it a lot, and they had been educated well in it. They were amazingly educated, given the fact that they were first and second generation Americans. So they formed a structure that would allow people to interact in freedom, even the freedom to love or the freedom to hate, either way, so that we would have free choice in our future destiny as a group, as a country, as a nation, and that would be our choice. And we didn't want any dictator becoming the policymaker for everyone else. Now, of course, there's a big fight going on in our country from the beginning all the way to now about everybody that we elect as a president or anything. FDR who was a Democrat, went way beyond the boundaries of presidential power and was imposing all of these things on people. Lincoln went way out of bounds when he told the South they don't have the right to secede from a union they voluntarily joined on the basis that they could leave if they wanted to. Sorry, that's expired. You're now a permanent part of it. You can't leave anymore. Well, wait, that was only, 100 years ago. So we fight back and forth on these issues, and maybe Lincoln was wrong and maybe he was right, but the country's still here, and we're glad of that. it's amazing when you look at a map of 50 different states, which are big states, a lot of them, not all of them. California is a big state.
Yeah.
But they get along. They act in the same rule and bundle of laws and in an amazing integration. And that's based on that Constitution. Because each state was elected, offered to join the Union, and they agreed to do so and to take on their own Constitution, patterned after the Constitution of the country. And it's worked out pretty well. We only had one small group of states that decided that they didn't want to stay around any longer, and we just killed about 1 million of ourselves to see to it that they did. So it's not without its problems. And we do have a cracked Liberty Bell.
Yeah.
So nobody said this is a perfect system.
I wanted to bring up a comment that Light of Love 333 put on Instagram. They put, "Your core essence is love."
No question about it. And if we don't know that, we need to learn that. Yeah. And if you once, I mean, this is when you talk about glamour, what are glamours and illusions and Maya? Maya is a East Indian term, which literally translated from the Hindu means not that, which tells you that it's not that they're talking about is reality. So whatever's not that, whatever's not reality is Maya. And glamour is the form of Maya that comes up in the emotional body. Oh my God, you're so beautiful. I love you. And we get into these emotional glamours. And I'm so beautiful. I'm so handsome. I'm so damn smart. So these are emotional glamours, and illusions are just this, I am Napoleon, I am the power. I am the one. I'm the Messiah. I'm whatever. So glamour, illusion, and Maya serve to do one thing. They surround love because it's the creative power. And if we take that creative power and we convert it into an illusion, it has to take illusion or glamour or Maya. It takes one of those forms in our consciousness. And so what we've done is we've put a cataract over love, and now we believe something else in our ego. And that's a tough thing to get free of when you don't know you're doing that to yourself. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. So then we shoot them because they told us that one too many times. And because we're damn sure that we're not that.
Yeah.
Which, if I'm not that, then I guess I am a glamour or an illusion or a Maya. So clearing those things away is the work of life. And when you clear them all away, then what are you doing? You're revealing the truth of the creative light that is the pure light of, which is Christ consciousness, if it's radiating out of you, which is the miracle of Jesus. Jesus just, it's not that love entered him, but the thing about him was he could do it. He could carry it. He could let it work in him. He could let it heal through him. He could shine it out into the world. And that means that his own personality was so free of its own illusions and glamours and Maya, which tells you the spiritual person that he must have been. We didn't know him. We didn't know what he's the son of a carpenter, but that doesn't mean he was stupid. So obviously he had a great heart and a great mind, and he was capable of holding himself steady in that light radiating out from him and say yes to it right through, all the way through, and demonstrate it to great effect. And I think that's the miracle of that man. And because I can't do that. I know I can't do that yet, but I know I'm going to do that because he showed that that's possible.
Yeah. And we can definitely hold space for love, and also Light of Love added, and I believe this was to when we're saying getting clear of the glamours, the Maya, and getting to it, they put that's where the healing comes in.
Yeah. The first law, which we were talking about earlier today when you and I were having a conversation, the first
No.
esoteric law of healing in the esoteric world, where a lot of love people get together and talk about how does life work, the first law of healing is that all disease of any kind whatsoever, and it may not look like it if you've got a disease you inherited from your family line or something, but all disease of whatsoever kind, mental, emotional, physical, is the result of inhibited soul life. And soul life is life that is fully illumined with love.
Yeah.
Your soul is functioning in a environment of full love intensity with no resistance at all. It's already built there, functioning there, thinking in love, not arguing with anything. And our personality in the world is so removed from that part of ourselves that we can't even really imagine what life there is like. So you can't just take it on. If you took it on, you wouldn't be able to go down to Ralph's and get yourself a quart of ice cream. Your nature would suddenly become so filled with this whole different set of principles and ideas and boundaryless relationships between you and all other lives in the unity of it all that we just couldn't find the car keys. So somehow human beings in this miracle that we're in have to bridge this. They have to figure out how to put the human personality, such as it is, exactly the way it is, how to bring that into harmony with that part of us that just lives love in an ever growing and increasing way.
Yeah.
So, and it's doable. Some human beings, I don't know any personally, except through my relationship with the hierarchical members who live that. But, I didn't know St. Francis of Assisi, but he was a guy that was pretty genuinely connected to love.
Hmm.
And it was well known that he would, if he ran into lepers on the way to wherever hell he was going, he would embrace them and bring healing to these guys. So he had enough of that going on in him that he could actually not catch leprosy from them, which is a good thing. If you're going to go around hugging lepers, you better be good at healing. So he could do that, and he could bring healing into their life. And that's a pretty rare thing for a human being to do. And that's not just some cooked up romance of the Catholic Church, because he could do that. He was Catholic, but they nearly killed him. They nearly martyred him like they do a bunch of other people. St. Lawrence, for example, who was martyred by the Jesuits, his last words were, "You can turn me over now. I'm done on that side," because they were roasting him alive in
Yeah.
Italy. So these things aren't being done by other people. The church is very self-protective of its thinking. And if
Yeah.
they think something's going to threaten its structure, even as St. Francis, because, what do they say? A prophet is never recognized in his own town. He got hit by love. If the St. Francis story is quite interesting, if you care to look at it, it's well documented. You can go to Assisi in Italy and you can check it out. There's the church. And he got a message through love from the divine creator of whatever he was looking towards that said, "Rebuild my church," because the church was getting a little bit strange around I don't know when he did this, around the 1500s, while the Crusades were going on, because he went on a couple of Crusades. He was a hometown patriot. So, but he was building his group. He got touched by this thing, so he went down and started rebuilding a church that was near Assisi, brick by brick. It had fallen down and was collapsed. So he thought, okay, I got a message from God that said, "Rebuild my church." And he didn't think about rebuilding Rome and the moral decay of the Catholic Church or the popes. So he just went down and started building a church. But he did it in the spirit of Christ. He did it in the spirit of poverty. So anybody who brought him anything, a golden plate or gave him money or gave him a cow, he just put it into the church group and said, sell this or do something with it so we can go on with our mission here to rebuild the church. And he built such a powerful following that it began to threaten the church itself. So they did the old-fashioned way. They came and said, look, you can have it one of two ways. You can let us run your organization the way we think it should be run, or we can kill you. It's kind of like, those are your two options. And the Jesuits are happy to do either one if it'll keep the church running along the way they think it should go. So he wrestled with all of that because they wanted him to eat off golden plates, and he wouldn't do that. He wanted to take anything he had that was worth a nickel and cash it in and live in poverty with his group. And I don't know, maybe he had 10,000 guys by then or something. He had enough to be a following. And he went to the church and said, I want my own following. You guys got the Jesuits, I want the Franciscans. And that's when they said, well, we'll give you the Franciscans, but we have to tell you how to run it. And you have to obey the church edicts. And if we say collect money and send it to Rome, then you collect money and you send it to Rome. Yeah. So he thought it over and decided that it was better off to say yes to the church than to be martyred. And then his group would have no leader and they would own it anyway. So I think it was probably the right decision. It would have been the decision I would have probably made, because who in hell wants to be martyred? But it's a classic example that whether it's the Catholic religion or Christian religion or the Rosicrucians, there are people in all of these followings that have great spiritual heart, and there are people in it who are just trying to hold things together and aren't necessarily so wise or so smitten with love. And, we judge the Catholic Church and we judge the Christian religions for all the things they do wrong that are not in a spirit of love. But without that spirit of love, we would not know that. So in a sense, it's because of love itself that we have the power to judge them. So they're having in the end, you can make all the arguments against the churches if you want, because they're all full of human beings, as we are, as anyone is. But you have to recognize that it's the impact overall over time. Whoops, sorry, I just wiped you out. It's the impact over time. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, so even though
you're frozen, but yeah,
that's okay. I'm used to that. I freeze all the time. Anyway, being from Alaska, it's a problem. So we want people to release love out of their inner jewel. In the East, they call it the jewel of the lotus. Your lotus is your soul that's growing, and it looks like a lotus flower because it's got 12 petals, and it's got at the heart of the lotus is a jewel of radiant power, which is surrounded by 3 lemon-colored lotus leaves that aren't unfolded until way late in your life. The St. Francis stage starts to unfold those petals. But up to then, you're unfolding 3 petals of knowledge, 3 petals of love, 3 petals of will, and then you unfold those 3 inner petals, the sacrifice petals, as you sacrifice yourself to love, and the spirit is in the jewel. So, and you've got spirit in you. Your heart is beating, and if your spirit disconnects from its mortal coil, that's it. Heart stops. And there's nothing else going to make that heart beat except that jewel of the lotus that is in each of us. And we can throw the paddles on you and pump you back and get that thing pumping again or something, but it's the monad or the spirit in you anchored in your heart that will come back and continue its journey for a while longer. So everything is in us. we are the source of everything we will ever be. There can be nothing in the tree that's not in the seed. And it's your freedom, your free will, that is going to unfold it and reveal it to yourself. And then after you reveal it to yourself, you'll reveal it to me or somebody else.
Yeah.
And which is I think it's a great way for life to go. Rather than have somebody else decide, oh, you've been a good boy, Seb. You've done all of you didn't step on any of the lines, and you did good deeds today. So I'm going to give you a reward. I think that whole system of reward, God's reward for us, is based on us not recognizing how we reward ourselves through our free will acting. It looks like God's rewarding us, but really you're releasing love by your positive actions, by your virtues.
Well, that's the benefit, I think, from doing any of this practice with group, because if you're doing it within a group, you already have a place to offer love. It's like you can only take as much as you can give, and if you've got people with you to give it to, then I think it's easier to grow that.
Well, if you're a group oriented guy like you are, then
Well, yeah,
then you like to do that. Some people, like the leech gatherer on the moor, that's a fantastic poem by Wordsworth, English poem. I'm not much of an advocate of English poetry, but there's a few things like Wordsworth and Shakespeare and a couple of other of the gang where you've got to give credit where credit is due. But that independence that comes with knowing that you have your own destiny uniquely in your hands, and the self-reliance that you must depend upon is yours, not her self-reliance, his self-reliance, their self-reliance. So there's a stage in everyone's journey, and this is the stage where you're developing self-reliance. And if you read Emerson, the American transcendentalist Emerson, if you read his essay on self-reliance, compensation and self-reliance, you see the same reflection as the leech gatherer on the moor, except that's just a great poem where of that kind of character who's just out on the moor gathering leeches to sell them to barbers. So because they get 2 pence for them or some stupid thing. And it's not an enviable job. I don't know if you've ever encountered a leech in the wild, but they're not much fun if they're stuck on you. Yeah. And they can easily get stuck on you. Yeah. That's their whole intention and purpose, is to stick on you until they suck as much blood out of you as they possibly can. And so it's a wonderful thing to realize, no matter what any human being is demonstrating is a certain stage in the development of all of us. We all have to pass through first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth. Every single moment of our life, we're in a certain stage. And then we come back and do the stage over again at another level. And so but there is a system, but it's so miraculously hidden in the folds of life that we don't know necessarily which one we're in. So then after you have self-reliance, then we can deal with some other experience that applies that to being in a group. And self-reliance is one of those things that requires us and our free will to act in strange ways. Sometimes there's some very I'm come from Alaska, where there's a lot of self-reliant people. Yeah. I can tell you stories all day about these characters that live up there in the woods. And that's genuine. They're just genuine characters, and they're amazing. But you realize they just don't belong in the public. They belong out where they are, because they just don't care about what the rest of the world is thinking or doing. So they build their cabin and they trap their animals and they save the furs, and they go turn the furs in and get a few bucks. It's like the leech gatherer on the moor.
Hmm.
And there was a guy on a cabin on a lake in a place not far from where I was, and his bathroom was all glass walls, floor to ceiling. So you could sit on the throne and you could look out over the whole lake, the whole countryside, because there was never anything on that lake.
Hmm.
No boats, unless he took a boat out that he'd built himself, because nobody brought any boats to that lake. It was on an island. So, a plane might come in and land and drop off some fishermen to camp there for a few days. And then hopefully remember to come back and pick them up later. That's happened too. I had a friend, my cousin used to fly those planes, and he told me stories sometimes where they just, go on vacation and forget to the guys that he told to pick up the people at Mary's Lake or something, just forgot about it. In those days, they didn't have communication like today. You couldn't carry that thing around with you to communicate with unless you had military grade equipment. So you counted on the float plane guys coming back to get you in a week, and so they were out there like a month without enough rations, and that's a test of your will and living strength. But not on that lake, because there was nobody there where they were. So that's independence. And I think, but in the world now, we have to face group consciousness is your friend, because developing your independence to deal with your own soul is one thing. But if you want to release love itself through your choice to let it live in you without glamours and illusions, you're going to have group help. Because love itself is a group energy. It's the same energy for everybody. You don't have different love than me. You have the same love as I do. And that's like, oh, that's right. Life is life, isn't it? And life comes in 7 flavors like ice cream, but love comes in 1. It's cosmic, but it streams out in 7 different aspects of itself. And so that makes it look very different in a will-centered person, which we know what will-centered people are like. They're aggressive and willful and starting wars and doing things. But whereas science people are doing science. So there are 7 different streams of this one cosmic energy. But love is in every single one of those. And it's all the same love. It's just acting different in a will-centered person than it is in a science-centered person or a love-centered person or an artistic person or a magician. So, and that takes us figuring all that out and learning to love each other and celebrate the differences in each of us until we figure out where we're all sane. Love's a wonderful game. Yeah. It's a great game. It is the game. It is the app that we need to build you want to develop an internet game, then develop the game of love. And it's not going to be easy to figure it out, because the brain cannot comprehend the depth of love, which is why we haven't imagined it. Because our brain is made out of this stuff. Matter. It's made out of atoms of matter. Atoms of matter are dumb. They can do chemistry, and they can spin their electrons and their protons and neutrons, and they can evolve from hydrogen to thorium or something, and then eventually radiate themselves out of existence. But they can't handle love yet. They're not mature enough to do that. And neither are plants, and neither are animals.
We had
human beings
another
are.
comment from Light of Love, and I believe this is in comment to One Love, but the 7 different streams, and they put expressed in unique ways. I think that's in reference to love coming through people in different unique ways. And then they also put, and I think this is, and correct me if I'm wrong, in reference to when we spoke earlier about, getting past the mire and living from love. They put it's it is very, very possible, which is true. It is very, very possible. It's
Well,
not
we
always
have
easy,
evidence
but
of it, and
yes,
we don't
I
have
agree.
enough evidence of it so that we can form universities and structures and intelligent spiritual centers, otherwise, aka awakened religions. We don't have enough of evidence of it yet, acceptable evidence that the public can gather around that universality and form intelligent systems of logic and freedom. But it's there. It's certainly there because it's doing it. If you look up in the heavens at night and look at our tiny little galactic arm sticking out there in the Milky Way, you suddenly realize the heavens seem to get along all right. It's not crashing into chaos. You don't see stars crazily. Some power or pattern or influences of harmony have gotten there ahead of us and developed a really wonderful universe. Those constellations that we value and have formed our myths about have been there for billions of years, millions of years that we know about. And you can go back to the Egyptians and see that they laid out their whole little pocket of pyramids over there in Egypt based on something going on in Orion's belt. So it doesn't jump all over the place. It's a very ordered unity. The only people that don't recognize that unity, who have the power to recognize it, are us, because we're not connected to love in ourselves sufficiently to see into love at a depth that shows us how it's working. Even though it's the creative power of the universe, and without it, you're not going to create any kids. Because love has to be engaged in all creation. And I'm an old dog at this because I've spent a lot of time in the trenches of warfare and of all kinds, including spiritual warfare. And it's not easy to figure it all out. It's not easy to see how the patterns are being created. But, and even spiritual people that I've known don't remember all the time that without love, without the soul, there is nothing created. Hmm. The kingdom where the souls of all creative life, let's put it this way, no life will take form. An atom, a plant, a human, an animal, a star, a planet, anything that's been created has to have a soul unfolding through its creation, because that's the order in which things take form. In the uncreated world of love, where the soul lives, the inclination to take form in the material world where we're living has to happen. It has to become an urge. And in that urge, somebody has to come up with an idea of what and how and when and why and the purpose of it all, and then force that into manifestation, temporarily at least. Because all material forms are temporary. There are no eternal material forms at this stage of the universe's appearance. So here comes Seb for a while. So he's going to take a form. But, and while your soul remembers why it's living, it knows why you're manifesting as a human being. You don't, because you're not in touch with that part of yourself. You have a vague idea about it. And congratulations on the fact that you've come to the place in this lifetime at your young age, your tender age, where you realize that love is the thing that's most important to remember to do while you're alive.
Yeah.
There's not that there's not other things that are important. And if you're an architect, building some buildings is important. And if you're an artist, painting or drawing or create, well, architects are artists. But if you're doing stuff like that, then that's important. But if you're not including love in the creation of whatever you're doing, then you're missing the greatest opportunity of life, which is to express love intelligently with will, which is wisdom, actually, in action. If you express love intelligently with will, then wisdom will be the result. And great creations by human beings that include love are always wise. That's how we judge them. Unless you like ugly. Some people do. Because we're governed by old rhythms that are sometimes pretty awful. So in the world right now, we're witnessing the collapse of structures that were built without building them. It's not that they lack all love, but they weren't built around the principle of love.
Yeah.
So they can only run so long, and they don't serve the whole group perfectly. So eventually they start to collapse. And because they're all interconnected in the world today, it's not like Rome collapsed and nobody knew about it over in Paraguay or somewhere. We're all interconnected. So we interconnected all our little civilizational ideas into one big global thing. But because that big global thing is not built around love, it has a lot of piss pot tyrants in it. Yeah. And we formed a United Nations, which isn't uniting at all. And some is trying to talk about it, but everybody's in there forcing their own agenda on the thing. And so the thing is collapsing. But that's putting a crisis on humanity and a crisis on Seb, because he lives in California, which is collapsing as well, because it's doing things that are not in harmony with the spirit of love.
Yeah.
The problem with the politics that does things that appear to be beneficial to everybody, or beneficial to immigrants, or beneficial to somebody, is that they're using other people's resources for it without asking them, which is stealing, which is, do you really want to let 1 million, 10 million, 5 million immigrants into our state and then pay for them until they can start paying their way without any agreement with them, without any contract with them, without any process for fairness or reciprocity? Well, if you asked the average person, most of them would say, no, I don't, because I don't know how much it's going to cost me. I already have some bridges we need to build. We just burned down a whole city full of people. We need to take care of our stuff. And so that's a legitimate argument. But if someone else is imposing it on you for their own reasons, then you have a failure in front of you. Because this, especially in America, where democracy is the idea that people decide what they want to impose on each other and themselves. And the central government has no doubt in this country gotten way too big. They just keep employing people to do things that somebody else has come up with that the public didn't vote for. And they created these bureaucratic institutions that have power in themselves. They've taken over there like cancer. They can grow themselves within the government, and nobody has any control over them because they just let them go. And now that Trump's decided he's going to rein all that in, it's stepping on a lot of toes, and well, it should. So in the argument of all of these things, we have to find a new kind of fairness towards each other, a fairness that says, hey, I love those people. I don't want to harm those people. And this is the hardest argument about what are we going to do about all these people that were brought into the country, then allowed into the country and welcomed into the country by one political party over the everybody else's argument of saying, no, don't do that. They said, yeah, we're going to do it anyway. So they did it. So now, what are we going to do about all those people? Because we actually facilitated their arrival here. And I think that gives them rights, personally. Yes, they came of their own free will, and many of them didn't come here because they were victimized in their country. I mean, Nicaragua is not a perfect country, but it's not Chad, it's not Jordan, it's not a place that you have to escape from to survive. It's usually the politics of a country or the racism of a country that forces you to have to get the hell out of there. If your politics are the same as the dictator that's in power, then he's just stealing most of your money. But you don't have to flee for your life. But so these countries where we drew a lot of these people from, like Mexico, they're good countries. They've got their problem. Mexico has its problems. It's a young country. But it's not a failed state. It's just got a lot of narco people in it that are pretty powerful. So what do you do with those people? They came of their own free will. Our laws don't allow for that unless you ask in advance and have a set of circumstances where we can just then take in a refugee. But they don't know our laws. They don't know what the American Constitution is, really. So they just came here hoping for a better life. And we welcomed them in and took them in and flew them in on airplanes in the middle of the night and dropped them off in places like Denver. So what can you say about all that, except that you're complicit in that? You either have to pay to repatriate them back to their country, or you've got to give them a shot at America.
Yeah.
And my point of view would be to let them stay, except that now you're encouraging 50 million more to come, because that's what we've always done. We let them build up to 10 million or something, and then we find a way to amnesty them all into the country because we can't round up them and their kids and send them home. And then the new ones start over saying, well, don't worry, because they're going to give you amnesty at some point. So I think it takes a consensus that we have to do something for these people that we brought in. Not, we have to take our part of the responsibility for it, but at the same time, we have to draw a line and manage our border, because that gives identity to a country. And Europe's learning the same lesson. Everywhere in the world's learning the lesson. People migrate and immigrate. That's how everybody got where they are. That's how I got where here. Folks that came with the Huguenots. I had family that came as Huguenots when the Catholic Church was killing all the German Huguenots. They got on a boat and came here to get off at Plymouth Rock and try to have some future, because the Catholic Church would kill you, and did. That's what the Friday the 13th is about, and other things. So was it Friday the 13th? I have two thoughts in my mind about Friday the 13th. One is that it was the Huguenots being killed by the Catholic Church, and the other that it was the Knights Templar being killed. One refers to the Huguenots, and another thing that's equally despicable refers to when they killed all of the Knight Templars. They did all that on one foul swoop. Wow. So I'm not sure whether that's a different one. Maybe somebody can tell us that, or Google or somewhere.
I could Google it.
You could Google it. Anyway, freedom and love are paired together. That's my point of this meditation, these are meditations in action that we are establishing a premise here. The premise is that human life should become a meditation in action that releases love into the organism of the human race in a full, flowing, free way, through the use of our free will, drawing it up out of ourselves, honoring it in us until it becomes an expression. And that requires freedom, free will, and love. And bringing those two into dynamic expression, freedom and love. And so how do you do that? You use your free will to develop a posture in relationship to love that lets it flow through you.
Hmm.
And if you've got any glamours or illusions or mayas in the way between you and love, you got to clear them out. Got to clear them out.
Yeah.
And it's painful sometimes to do that. But you survive the pain. It won't kill you. Pride won't kill you. It can kill you physically, but it won't kill your soul. But humility will release that love, and pride will take a back seat, along with arrogance and those other things that we cherish so much. And then group consciousness, which takes everybody's love and adds it to yours and gives you tremendous power to clear away the obstacles in your own personality. Think about it. When you realize that you have tremendous resistance in your personality because you were the Marquis de Sade, and then you were somebody else, and then you were Marco Polo or somebody, you've done a lot of things, and you've got a lot of obstacles between you and the freedom of love in your life, and all those incarnations that you fucked up. But if you choose love, you choose a group energy, and you can bring that into you and turn that towards all of that resistance that you may have built up from 50 lifetimes of being the chief executioner of France. And you can heal it all. You know, there's a way through for everybody once you turn into that energy and start allowing it to perform its function. And realize that your ego life, your ego nature, can't do the things that love does. Only love can do what love does. So until you let that energy have some action in you, you will not have transformation. You're never going to turn water into wine. You're not going to have transmutation. You're not going to have transfiguration. You're not going to have unity, and you're not going to be filled with grace. But take love in, let it have some room in you to function with your self-awareness, and you can have all of those to the degree that you want them, to the degree that you are letting yourself be encouraged. And what's scary is you can meet people and realize there are people out there that are actually capable of doing that. Mostly women. But you meet them and you realize, my God, there's just not a trace of anything in this person that is anything not good. I mean, I've been a Marine in Vietnam. I know what not good is up close.
Yeah.
But I've met people that I just would go, my God, that person is a saint without knowing it. They may not be aware of love, but they just have no vices in them. They just shine light with grace and perfection and service, and maybe serve you at your table and wait on you and offer you things, and you just go, wow, that is just a perfect human being. Well, they're not, because they've got things too, but wow, way closer to it than me. But at the same time, I kind of get a picture of what the battlefield looks like and how it has to be won. And you're going to have to get in the trenches to overcome some of the things that we have built into ourselves over millions of years of human living without consciousness of love. And discovering that karma really is a thing that you're going to have to deal with every day in your life, because you have the past catches up to you, which we'll do another talk about karma. Karma is a wonderful thing, but not when it's in your face. And anything in your face at all, the first question you ask to yourself is, what did I do? What did I do to put that person standing on my toe? What did I do to get myself in this goddamn jam I'm in right now? How did I do that? Because that's the nature of the universe. Everybody gets exactly what they deserve. And you don't, in the Christian world, because they don't understand reincarnation or the idea of what part of them is projecting into the world and then withdrawing from the world and taking some time out and then coming back again. They don't see that as a system of life, which half of the world believes in it. Half of the world sees reincarnation as real and obvious. And a lot of the Christian world thinks it might be okay, but it's not in their book. So it is in their book. I mean, even Jesus was referred to as who he was in a previous lifetime when he was a prophet. So, yeah. So it's okay. But when you see how old you are and how many times you have come upon the earth and who you might have been back sometime earlier when you weren't as sweet and nice as you are now, then maybe you'll realize karma might come back to bite you in the ass later.
Yeah. We had another comment from Light of Love 333. The energy of love and beingness of love one sends can reach across the world and to all expanses of the universe. And then they put, all will remember their core essence of love and divine love. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, is the future.
Yeah.
They know that. Everybody has that in their heart. They may not admit it because they don't like those assholes that live next door who are from Pakistan or somewhere. But everyone knows it in their heart that statement is absolutely true. And right now there's a group of human beings in the world that are seeking to express that in a practical way. And I don't mean spiritual teachers that they have like up in Tibet or somewhere. They're around and they've been doing that for a long time, and other spiritual teachers. I'm talking about what we think of as human beings. We're human beings. We're sort of not chosen into love so deeply that there's nothing else in us. And that those are spiritual masters. Those are spiritual initiates of high order and things like that, of which there's fortunately quite a few. But there are human beings out on the earth, scattered all over the place right now, who are recognizing that they have the desire in them and the ability in them to choose that frame of reference, to draw love out into them and to connect it to others like themselves. It doesn't matter where they're born, doesn't matter what their religion is, doesn't matter what their ethnicity is. They don't care anything about that because that doesn't matter. That's out there that's what you're wearing. But each of them knows that person that they could know in that other culture, in that other religion, in that other meeting them in the Times Square, they will agree on love, and they will agree on the universality of it. And they will also agree that the 7 different streams of it are fine. We'll all just figure it all out, but we're going to change this, and we're going to form a cadre of consciousness that establishes a governmental understanding, and we're going to eventually make this work. We are going to do that. And if we do that in our generation, your generation, then the next generation will get better at it. Yeah. And then the next generation better at it. And before you know it, it will be a manifestation of universal agreement with reality. Yeah. Life is not at war with itself. We are. Because we don't believe in love. We have not chosen to love with the kind of commitment that says, I'm not going to go to war with anybody over anything, period. I'm just not going to do it. But if someone comes thundering into your town and starts stealing all your pumpkins, you might go out with an axe handle and talk it over with them. So, but these people are not going to choose axe handles over cooperation. They might go out and say, hey, do you need some pumpkins or do you just want mine? If you need some pumpkins, we can give you some. What do you got? We can trade. So in effect, it's all just working it out. and not starting with this megalomania thing that says, hey, if you got pumpkins, I want them. I deserve them. I want your pumpkins, which is what taxation, unfair taxation, and giving away your pumpkins to somebody else is about. You grew them. You spent your money on the fertilizer. You went and got the seeds. You did the daily work to plant them, and someone shows up from the government and says, we're taking half of your pumpkin. Well, why? Well, that's because we decided to pass them around to people who need pumpkins. Yeah, but that's my future. That's how I'm going to build my farm and pay for my seeds. And yeah, well, good luck with that. So the world has to figure this stuff out. But we've got people who have decided that whatever the obstacles are, we're going to meet them, overcome them with love, and it will work out.
Yeah.
People who live love don't want to take other people's stuff. They don't need to, because they have the creative power of love working on their behalf. And if they want pumpkins, then life will deliver them something they can go trade for pumpkins. That someone will say, okay, that's a fair trade. Give me a wheelbarrow and I'll give you half a dozen pumpkins or something. Because I can use a wheelbarrow to pick up my pumpkins. It's just fairness, the fairness of love. There are many virtues. There's a dozen virtues, which we could name and go through if we want to look at them. But these are all things that by living them, we create a virtuous life for ourselves and others. And they aren't hard things to do. Patience is a virtue. But patience is also dynamic. It's not passive. It's not waiting around for someone to bring you something like Grubhub. Patience is the application of an energy inside of you, which originates in love, that demolishes the resistance that's causing you to have to wait. So in other words, you are the curator of your own patience. So rather than wait around for something, you apply an energy from inside yourself to that problem that's causing there to be a delay in what you think is a delay. And you don't know what the delay is caused from. You don't know who needs what that's causing this to be held up. So you apply love to it in a way that feeds energy into whatever the problem is, in a way that helps solve it universally for whatever out there that you're not aware of needs some rain on its crop. And then it unblocks. And then all of a sudden things start to flow again. And then what you've been waiting for shows up at your door and you think, oh, finally it's here. Well, but you, in the active aspect of patience, have contributed to clearing that obstacle. And that's life in a love-based universe. But we're so unconscious of love as a power that we think of patience as something you just sit on your ass at a bus stop and wait for. We don't know. What can I do? What can you do about it? Well, nothing. It's just the trains in Italy. They run slow. So we wait. But that's not true. There's a dynamic power in patience which can dissolve all of the resistances that are causing you to have to wait. And you don't know how it will show up, but it might show up in your uncle calling you and say, I'm going to give you this extra car I've got. Now you don't have to wait. Now you can drive yourself to where you're trying to go. So you see, the solution is not always what we think it's going to be. But in love, solutions are love's business. That's what it does. It creates everything in the universe, which means all the solution. And if you're Ganesh, you're creating the problems, because the problems that people have solve the solution of their unconsciousness of love. If you've got a big problem in you that's making you unconscious of love, then you need something to enter your life to shake that up, to draw that out, to get that out of that needle out of your ass, and so that you don't have that obstacle anymore. And life does that for us. That's what suffering is for. Yeah. Love causes suffering. When you need suffering to complete your journey into love. It's like, can't you come up with a better way? Well, yes, but you're not conscious enough to apply that better way to yourself. So you're going to have to suffer in your ignorance. Once you start applying love to yourself, really, with will, with commitment, the suffering starts to disappear. Because love is now working through you, creating the solution to your own problems. It is a system, and it's been worked out by a really intelligent thing called life. A lot of scientists think life is not very smart. They think they're smart, inventing nuclear power, but not life. Life is just out there crashing around in the universe, following entropy and so on. But life is very smart. It's been around a long time. Yeah, a long time. So it's time for us to be aware of that, take love on, realize the depth and height and width of ourselves and love and the universe, and start living like we were real people with a real future. And create that future out of love without waiting around for someone to pay us the money so we can buy the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have to live it. And I mean, not only are we, that's what we're doing within ourselves, but, you know, we spoke earlier about how a lot of things now are kind of crashing and coming to an end, like governments and groups and organizations that were built without love in them as part of, you know, built around the love. But that's what the Love Foundry is. You know, that's what we're building. I don't know how well we're doing it, but we're building it around
Amateurs.
love. Yeah, we
But
are
we're working
amateurs.
on it. And
yeah, but we're doing it, you know.
yeah,
So
we are. Well, there has to be a better way. I mean, that's why we build a better mousetrap.
yeah,
The imprisonment of humanity, we've imprisoned ourselves.
yeah,
But that doesn't mean it's easy to break out. We have to break out of our own prison. And the way you break out is to choose to apply love to yourself and the prison. But
yeah,
you've got to love the prison. The difficulty of political parties is they don't love each other. But if they don't love each other, then they have no love to apply, because you can't take sides. Love doesn't take sides. It doesn't love Republicans more than Democrats, conservatives more than liberals. It just doesn't do that, because it perfects each of them to love through experience. So it loves. Well, nobody told you not to love the other party. You decided what you love and don't love. You decided that that the universe is divided into things that I love and things that I don't love or hate. It's one thing to actively not love something, and it's one thing to not care about it. I don't really love clams, but that doesn't mean I don't like clams living in the beach, you know? So it's just up to you to decide. But if I hate clams, well, that's a whole nother thing. So these are all the difficulties of humanity, and it can look like too much. It can look like too much to figure out. And if we just believe in God and let God fix it, but God's not going to fix it for you. Jesus isn't going to fix it for you. The Buddha's not going to fix it for you. You're going to fix it for you. And in the end, you wouldn't want it any other way, because by the time you fix your personal problem completely with love, you will be then capable of helping other people fix their problem. And the person that you will have become, you would not give up ever, to go back to being Seb and being God's pet who's going to fix things for you like he did for Adam and Eve. That's what leaving the garden is about. Go out there and become self-reliant. You want to share God's relationship to the universe, you got to leave the garden and go out there and learn what it's about. And that's how we learn that self-reliance, how we learn that ability. Experience, hard experience in the quarry of life, as they say in the esoteric world. You got to hew your quarry, and you got to shape it into your stones, and you got to build your temple. But All those aphorisms don't tell you how to do it because it's in your heart. Wisdom will show you how to lay the stones, but you're going to have to shape the stones with your heart. You're going to have to decide that that's what you're building. You're building a temple to love. And then you need wisdom to show you how to do that, which it will the moment you commit to it. So I'm just saying that you don't have to figure it all out.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to go to Mars, you're going to have to join Elon and figure out whether that's a good idea or not. And because he has a fear the human race won't survive without Mars or without leaving the planet, then he's trying to build some place to go, which is a really reasonable idea. If you think the place is going to become a swamp and nobody can live here, then you've got to figure out another place to live because we fucked up the whole planet. There's got to be another planet. So we can't go to Venus. The place is a mess, worst planet in the universe to live on. But Mars looks kind of relatable, but it isn't. It's not going to support human life. Earth is. So we better fix it. And love will fix it. And if you look at the human race, you think, oh my God, they're so far from love, they're never going to fix this fucking place. And they don't understand the power of love to fix things. And if you look at any place in nature where we've left it the hell alone for a little while, like the border between North Korea and South Korea, that's 20 miles wide. And it's all the way across the country. And it's filled with life. It's teeming with life. Birds and bears and hippos and all kinds of shit live in this zone. Same thing with Chernobyl, where we covered the reactor up and created a dead zone for 20 miles in all directions. It's filled with life. It's coming back to life. Nature will return if you just quit abusing it. And we have the oceans whittled down to almost no sustainable fish left in it. But if you leave the ocean alone, it'll come back. It'll have lobsters and crabs and porpoises and fish and tuna and all the stuff that we've nearly wiped out. So, but we have to stop killing those things at that rate for that to happen, which takes love. It takes practical application of international rules of agreement, but how much do the Chinese adhere to those international rules of agreement? They send out fleets of 200 ships to drop gill nets and sneak into territorial waters of Argentina or somewhere and just swipe out all of that stuff. And they're building those ships faster than we're coming to the realization that we need to not do that. And how are we going to convince the Chinese? We'll find out.
Yeah.
Because we're going to build a civilization on love or we will crash into oblivion. Nearly oblivion. Human beings have been near oblivion before. If you knock us down to 10% of our population, which a lot of people think is a good idea, then we will return slowly over time. Because we're really fast breeders. We're just like rabbits. We'll screw anything that slows down. But it's going to take time, and it'll return us back to some very primitive times. But it will keep us from exterminating ourselves if that happens. But I think we don't need to do that. I think we need to choose love now and build the next civilization upon it as a foundation. And that takes agreement upon it.
Yeah.
And the average person who doesn't know spirituality the way I know spirituality might think that that's not going to happen. Because we need really profound help for that to happen. Some people look to the UFO people to help us do it because they've got intellect and inventions. I don't. I look to our own spiritual teachers to help do it. Because they know how to release the power of love in human beings, because they've been studying human beings their whole entire lives, which are millions of years long. The spiritual teachers of humanity have been along on this earth working on our upbringing for a long, long time. And they also have relationships to greater spiritual beings, which help. There's some profound beings helping Earth to try to figure out its tiny little problem with love. So I know that, and I know they're here, and I know they're working. So I see that potential to help humanity without violating our free will, so
Yeah.
that we can, if we come to the place where we go, okay, all right, let's try love. How's that? Then you draw it out of nature, because it takes commitment to something in order to get super nature, mother nature, the angelic nature to join you. It'll join you immediately that you commit yourself to doing something. That's how you get to the top of Everest. You commit to climbing it, and then nature shows up and gets you guides and rope and tools. That stuff was always been around, but not in your life, because you never committed yourself to climbing Everest. Once you do that, then nature can respond to you. But it takes a clear, concise purpose in you that you're committed to. And if love is the purpose you're committed to, nature will show up for humanity in profound ways.
Yeah.
Super profound ways, spiritually profound ways,
Yeah.
and show us how to do it. Give us a hand, but not violate our free will and do it for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Light
it's
of
your
Love.
lesson.
Sorry.
Hmm?
Light of Love put, everything is alive and sacred. Every molecule vibrating with life, with love, with sacredness.
Yeah. And what would happen if we all had reverence for what that is?
Yeah.
See, if we had reverence for that, have reverence for every single thing your eye befalls, because it's an expression of the creative power of life itself, which, if you don't have reverence for life, you're an idiot. So reverence for life itself means that you have to have reverence for all of its children, because they're living. There's no dead atoms. You can cut a tree down and make a picnic table out of it, but the atoms that are in that table are still alive, and they're going to never die. They're just going to evolve into higher forms of life. So having reverence for every atom of the universe is a natural instinct of love. Why wouldn't it be? That's the best way to live. Have reverence, give reverence to things, and allow them to live, to breathe, to join you. Participate in the great adventure of life. It's a sacred story. You can read the Bhagavad Gita, but that doesn't mean you realize the sacredness of the journey. But you can just look around you in nature and see how sacred it is. It's just evident. Every sunset tells you that. Every deer tells you that. Every hummingbird tells you how sacred life is. So join them. Don't think you're smarter than them, because you're not sacred, giving sacredness to them. Very few things in nature act against love. Human beings do. It's kind of a habit we've formed. And that's itself a very interesting story in our own past. And it's a magnificent story because of what it will give birth to, which we can talk about sometime, but those are speculative things, and I like to try to work with practical things until we have a good foundation under us.
Yeah. We also have to wrap this up.
We do have to wrap it up. This has been great.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed it. Thank you for joining, and we'll look at what's up for tomorrow or the next day we do it.
Thank you to everyone who joined, especially to Light of Love 333 for adding to this. So thank you very much. Until next time.
Great.